So welcome everyone. I just started recording. Thank you everyone for joining us, especially new people, because I know this is Zoom and it's always a little bit of a, we're all spending way too much time on it. I'm going to try to do this to expedite the who's a new member, who's not. So if you are new to the QSWAB, this is your first meeting, just raise your hand and wave so we can see all the new hands. Awesome. Margaret, Oliver, Adam, terrific. Thank you. And if you are a returning QSWAB person and you've been to at least 2 meetings, raise 2 hands. Awesome. Okay, groovy. All right, and if you are one of the kind of original in the first year, if you are with us since 2018, and you were kind of in the first round of QSWAB people, go like this. Awesome, we got a couple, all right, good deal, fabulous. So we've got the full range here of people who are new, people who've been with us a few years, and then some real diehards who've stuck with us through thick and thin. If you are new, if this is your first meeting and we don't know you, if you wouldn't mind putting your email in the chat. We again create meeting minutes after these meetings, and we want to make sure that we've got your email so we can stay in touch with you. So. With that as our very brief introduction, my name is Wiley Goodman. I'm the chair of this QSWAB thing, organizing committee that we've been doing. Also with us is Amy Markman, who I will let her introduce herself. Can everyone unmute? Or whoever, Amy, can you unmute? Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. Sorry. I know. Caitlin's taking minutes, but I was just typing people's names as they pop in.
No, Kate. I think Kate Enns is going to take meeting minutes now.
Wonderful. That's great.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Amy Martman. I guess vice chair of QSWAB. I live out in Queens Village. Yeah. I'm not sure what else you want me to say, but I'm glad to see everyone here tonight. Thank you for joining.
Yep, great. So we are going to get started. We have with us Alan Swisher, who's the general counsel from Donovan Richards, the Queensborough President's Office, who's going to tell us a bit and share his screen about. We have Councilmember Reynoso. Thank you, Councilmember Reynoso, for joining us. We're thrilled to have you and Asher Freeman with us, as well as we're joined by Joseph Nocerino, also from Donovan Richards' office, who's going to tell us about the application process for this new officially recognized QSWAB. So Alan, take it away.
Thank you very much, Wiley and Amy, and everyone here. I'm really honored to be here tonight and excited to announce the official opening of the reinstated QSWAB application period, which we announced on Monday. So I guess I'll start from the beginning, give a little bit of background, and then I can show you the actual application and answer any questions that folks might have. But last year, Borough President Richards made a commitment to reinstate QSWAB whenever he took office, and when he did, he asked me to help shepherd that process and ensure that the process complied with relevant laws and best practices and the advice of the organizing committee. So I guess first and foremost, I just want to thank all of you, the members of the organizing committee and Wiley and Amy in particular, for pushing for so long for this to happen and bringing waste management issues to the forefront of Queens and advocating for a zero waste future. Reinstating the SWAB in Queens, I will be the first to admit it is long overdue. So I'm very happy that we are at this point. So on behalf of the Borough President, I just want to give some of his thoughts on the role that QSWAB is going to play moving forward. he wants to really treat it like a partnership, and he wants to complement the work that all of you have already put into this process. So, our primary goal is to make sure that we are getting regular formal advice on the issues that QSWAB cares about from the advocates who care about those issues the most. So, with that being said, I hope that all of you are also open to hearing the borough president out on some of his priorities with environmental and waste management policy. In the conversations that he and I have had about this, one of the issues that I know that he cares deeply about is the intersection between environmental and waste management policy and racial justice. And, how the way that our city has helped with these issues in years past, how that oftentimes can reflect and entrench a lot of the disparities that you can see along racial and class lines. So that's one of the perspectives he's bringing to this project. I've been working with Donovan for several weeks now. And things to say about him that became very clear very early on is that he is very open to good advice and suggestions. And I think that he has the humility as a leader to know that he doesn't personally have all the answers. So he's very much looking forward to working with all of you moving forward. So in particular, he's looking forward to reading the state of waste in Queens report that you've been preparing. So, I think that the other thing that he wants to make sure that the QSWAB does is that it complements some of the other environmental policy work that our office hopes to do moving forward. Earlier this week, the borough president actually, as a trustee for NYSERS, the public pension fund in New York City, voted for a fossil fuel divestment plan, which we think is a really important step for a greener future. We're also exploring some ways that we can leverage the use of city-owned property, including Borough Hall, to use and promote the generation of renewable energy and solar energy as well. So, we've tried to hit the ground running, but we've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline at the moment. So, with all that said, let me show you guys the application real quick and talk about some of that. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second here.
And Alan, not to rush you too much, only to say that for our schedule, Asher and Antonio are going on at like 6:45 or so.
Okay, I'll run through the application real quick and then open it up for questions. I just want to show everyone where the form is, what it looks like. So if you go to queensbp.org/SWAB, SWAB, or if you go to policy priorities at the queensbp.org webpage, you'll be able to go here, click the big green button to complete the Queens Solid Waste Advisory Board application. It's a completely electronic application. This is something that we're actually doing with community boards as well this year. And, fortunately, we were able to leverage some of the things that we learned from that process in order to complete this application as well. We also took a look at what Manhattan and Brooklyn were already doing, and the process that we adopted is actually pretty similar with some tweaks to what they were doing. One thing that I do want to point out here and just emphasize that we do ask in the application if you're a current member of the Queens Solid Waste Advisory Board Organizing Committee, or you've attended any meetings or events sponsored by the Queens Solid Waste Advisory Board Organizing Committee. The reason for that is that, we're not looking to supplant or change what, the work that all of you have been putting in for so many years now. We're looking for people who are passionate and involved in these issues. And the best way that you can demonstrate that is by participation in the organizing committee. So I can't make any promises about appointments at this point, but I think that folks who have been involved in this and part of the organizing committee really have nothing to worry about with that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Great.
All right, and let me open Zoom back up. Okay.
So does anyone, have any questions? I know Kendall, you asked about the number of members they're contemplating.
So at this point of 20 members, I think that, we're not looking to just stack and put everybody on the board. We're looking for quality people who have experience in these issues and can bring a valuable perspective in it. I would anticipate that it would not be over 40 members, but at this point, we're waiting to see who all applies and the type of diversity that we can have on the board. But at this point, a minimum of 20 members is what the law requires. And applications are going to be open until February 26th. So one of the things that I would ask all of you is for your own individual networks, if you know of folks who you think would be able to contribute to the QSWAB or would be a valuable member, reach out to them. Our goal really is to make sure that this is an equitable process. Everyone interested in getting involved in these issues has the opportunity to do so. So, the aviation round, we're trying to cast a wide net to make sure that everyone hears about this and knows the good work that you've been doing.
And someone asked, I know Amy already answered it, are the meetings open to the public? Yes, they are. That's required. Yep.
They're covered by the open meetings law. They'll be open. And, Wiley and Amy and I have discussed this. We're going to make sure that Borough is able to provide some technical support for meetings moving forward. So while we're still in the middle of COVID, with some Zoom support, but then ideally, whenever things get back to normal, a regular meeting space in Borough Hall.
Cool. Joe, do you want to say anything about your role as a community kind of liaison to the group? But not to put you on the spot. Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Yes, I would love to.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the councilman here too. I want you, I don't know if we saw. Yes, I got to tell you, I'm thrilled to be back with you guys. I've missed you guys. I think I told Amy and Wiley both, the first couple of meetings, you had me, but you didn't. And then after that, boy, was I hooked. So I have to tell you, it's a new beginning, as Alan says. It's a new administration. Donovan Richards has proven from day one, he appointed me to continue on environmental, but within 2 weeks expanded it. Hallett's Cove, Powell's Cove, wind tunnel in Astoria. I'm working on 5 or 6 projects, and he circles back and says, QSWAB. So listen, we know there was a point where we were frustrated, but that's behind us, and now we're moving forward, and this is it, and this is the guy. I mean, the guy. We're going out next week for the wind program that the governor promised to see space in Astoria, see what we can do. So this guy gets it. You know what? He's the right guy at the right time. So Amy and Wiley, if you're sorry to see him back, too bad. I'm here. So I'm here for you. We'll get this done. But good to see you all.
Thank you, Joe. All right, awesome. But if there are no more questions, we'll turn it over to Asher and Councilmember Reynoso, I guess. I don't know if you want to have the first lead us in to talk about legislative and land use. Well, Asher is your legislative and land use director, and we know that there is an upcoming sanitation hearing, I think on February 23rd, that hopefully you'll tell us a little bit about how we can potentially contribute and any other policy issues that we need to be thinking about to support your work.
Yeah, so first I just wanted to join the party. I'm so excited that we're even on this call. So congratulations. It's like a huge victory. I want to thank Donovan Richards. I called him and I asked him, do you care about the QSWAB? He's like, day one. As soon as I'm in there, they don't need to worry about it. It'll be activated. And he followed through on his commitment, and it's a glorious day. Which it's ridiculous that this is a victory, right? it should have always existed, but it just shows you that we can't take our folks for granted, the people that have always stuck by us for granted. And you know, Donovan was with us when he was a council member on many issues that were important, and it just translated into the work that he's doing in the VP's office. So I'm just extremely grateful for that. And I don't want to keep you, I don't want to talk too long. Asher, my better half when it comes to the policy work and the legislation, is going to be able to take over and really speak on those issues. Always count me as an ally as well. Alan, make sure you send your regards, my regards to Borough President Richards. It's still not easy to say. It's been 8 years saying Councilmember Richards. But again, I just want to thank everyone on this call, because it isn't only about the borough president, it's about the work that you guys did for all those years organizing to make sure that this is a reality. You never gave up, and that's why we're here today, is you didn't give up. So congratulations to the Queen SWAB. I'm looking forward to a party in person where we get to hang out and shake hands and hug each other. And I see that Commissioner Garcia is here. And I do want to say, you know, in my time as a council member, I couldn't have asked for a better partner in crime than Commissioner Garcia when it came to the work that we did related to trash throughout the city of New York. And I know she's a guest speaker here, and you're probably going to do a better job at introducing her. But again, when we talk about Donna Richards, when we talk about Commissioner Garcia, you know, we cannot take our friends for granted, because we see what happens when we do. So again, thank you all for allowing me to speak this bit. Asher, I know, is going to take over and do a great job. And Commissioner, it's good to see you here.
Good to see you. I miss seeing all my buddies. I heard from Eddie and Melissa in the last 2 days, and I was like, it's my garbage crew.
There you go. Yeah, this is the trash talking group here. But take care, Queens. Good job. And I'm sorry I got to jump off. I'm on daddy duty as usual around 7 o'clock. So I'm jumping ship, but you're in good hands, obviously.
Thank you, council member. We really appreciate your support. Commissioner, if you don't mind, we're running, well, actually we're not behind, we're right on time. So we're gonna give Asher about 5 minutes to bring us all up to speed on what's going on in the sanitation committee and policy, and then we will turn it over to you.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks, Wiley. And thanks for taking mercy on me and putting me before Kathryn. I would not have shown up if I had to follow her. It's a tough act. Good to see everyone. I have a couple of updates. As Wiley mentioned, we do have a hearing scheduled for February 23rd. And that's going to be a big, broad hearing that really everyone should participate in, because it's going to be an oversight hearing on the city's 0 by 30 goal, sending zero waste to landfill by 2030. Obviously, we haven't gotten nearly as far as we would have hoped to in the past 7 years of this administration. So we're going to be hearing a bill that would require the city to produce a plan with very specific steps on what needs to happen to reach zero waste. And I'm sure the commissioner will have a lot of thoughts about that. But we really want everyone to show up and kind of share their ideas on reduce, reuse, recycle, composting, all the things that we know we need to do in short order to reach that goal. So that's one thing. We also, just a quick update on commercial waste zones, that is still moving along. We're about 6 months behind schedule on that due to the pandemic. Obviously, the commercial waste sector was completely bottomed out. So, you know, we weren't able to move forward kind of in the early days of the pandemic, but we are moving forward now, and we expect this thing to start being implemented early next year. Also want to flag that we are back in budget season. I can't believe it, but we're back in that time. And, you know, it's really unclear right now what the budget cycle this year is going to be. Right now, the outlook is very, very grim, but we are hopeful with a fully democratic federal administration that we will get some state and local aid and hopefully be able to restore some of the programs that got cut last year. Both on kind of the basic service side, but also the environmental initiatives, the curbside composting program, the community composting program, and all of that. So we will be relying again on your advocacy. I know there was a huge push last year that the QSWAB played a really major role in. So I want to thank you for that. And we're going to call on you again to just highlight the importance of all of these programs. And then the final thing is I just wanted to kind of provide a brief update on the hearing that we had last month related to big reuse and LES ecology and their sites, which are threatened. Currently, they're on city-owned sites, but the Parks Department, in the case of big reuse, is not willing to renew their site. We did get them a 6-month extension, but we want a permanent home for both of those organizations. They play a critical role. They've really been picking up the slack while the curbside program has been suspended. So I just want to shout out those two organizations. Big Reuse is in Queens and Long Island City, and just would ask for your continued support in pushing the city to find a permanent home for those folks. And that's all the updates from my end. I'm happy to take any questions.
For the oversight hearing, Asher, I know, I talk with Sherry Ruckel from the Brooklyn SWAB and Matt Savella from the Manhattan SWAB a lot about, and Dior St. Hilaire, who's here from the Bronx SWAB, which is we're really excited about. But what would be the most helpful for that oversight hearing in terms of you need to hear from us kind of what we see as priorities for the budget, for the committee, just help us kind of focus will we be delivering testimony at that hearing, et cetera.
Yeah, so I think, there's two things happening, and this is a big hearing and it bleeds into a lot of different things. The oversight hearing on the zero waste goals will be in February, and then we'll have a preliminary budget hearing in March. For the zero waste hearing, I think it really would be helpful to kind of hear from folks what they think are the most important priorities in terms of programs that we need to reach zero waste. Hearing from groups like the SWAB on what's been effective on the ground. We do rely on buy-in from the public to recycle, to compost, to do these things. And so just kind of hearing from you what's working and what's not working. And what you think is the most important programs to prioritize would certainly be helpful.
Are there any questions in the chat that I have not addressed? Kendall, again, you asked if there was a bill number. Did you get your question answered?
Yeah, no bill number yet. It hasn't been introduced.
All right, if there are no more questions, we will move to our featured speaker then. Thank you so much, Asher.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, take care. All right, I'm going to kind of keep the introduction short because I know we always have a very full meeting, and we have some really great questions that people have sent in advance, and I've just let the commissioner know we've got about 10 or 11 questions, and we'll go around. People were assigned questions, people who asked questions, then some other folks who were assigned. But by way of introduction, we are here with a former DSNY Commissioner, Kathryn Garcia, also interim commissioner at NYCHA, also tasked with being the food czar for a while in the face of COVID-19 and the really urgent and critical food supply issues that so many New Yorkers have faced. She is now running for mayor of New York, and we are here to hear her out and to talk with her about some waste policy issues and her perspective on those. We are not here to endorse a particular candidate. I just need to kind of say that up front. She was the 43rd commissioner of New York City Department of Sanitation from 2014 to 2020, and again, was in charge of the department during a really critical time around the whole zero waste to landfills, and has been a strong advocate of the organic brown bin program and voluntary recycling. So without further ado, I'll welcome Commissioner Garcia and let you say whatever introductory remarks you'd like, and then we'll turn it over for questions.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, to be with my trash talking crew, and also thrilled that Queens has a SWAB. I know that was a long time coming, but it's critical that every borough actually maintains their SWAB and is able to advocate I mean, it was a tough year at the Department of Sanitation, and a tough year personally for me, as I watched many of what I thought were absolutely critical programs just get tossed aside. And, you know, that included, of course, the food scrap and yard waste program, community composting, and just Asher knows this, but I'm pretty sure they only funded community composters for 1 year, and that they were not funded and baselined going forward. It's a little trick that OMB plays. So you forget that you're going to actually have to fight every single time for it, because it's not quote unquote cut. It just doesn't actually exist in the next budget. And seeing people have to fight for those programs that are so important to our long-term future and our real work towards climate change. But even the small program on electronic waste, where we know that that's the most hazardous part of our waste stream at this point in time, and that program fell to the wayside. I'm happy that commercial waste zones continues to move forward. As Asher said, there was a time they didn't actually know how they were going to budget anything, because there actually was like zero commercial waste in March and April of this year. Thankfully, that has come back. I mean, Manhattan is still a train wreck, but we are happy to see that the Department of Sanitation is moving that and continuing to ensure that we get that done. It's critical. It'll be transformative. But, you know, I'm running for mayor because doing the things that we need to do for climate, for our long-term plans, you have to have some stick-to-itness and really be able to prioritize. And so I would have never allowed us to lose those critical programs. And we know that we're going to have to do it. At some point, it has to get done. It's on the agenda. Otherwise, we can't meet all of these climate goals. And so I am super excited to be running and to be pushing not only around zero waste and really driving that number down, but I also was a little bit excited today to see in the New York Times that we have legislation introduced on EPR. That is the direction we need to hold the manufacturers accountable for what they produce, so it doesn't all just fall on municipalities to sort of deal with the end of the line and try and scramble and have our technology and how we separate things match whatever it is they creatively thought about. This is really putting the incentives in the right place. So I'm thrilled to see that moving forward. But I also would say that on the community compost, I do not understand why they continue to try and push big reuse off their site and the Lower East Side Ecology Center off their site. Like, you didn't actually care about big reuse's site until it got cleaned up and made into something nice. And they're like, oh, look at that nice site. I think that I'll use that. And I have enjoyed the press on they paved paradise to put up a parking lot. But I've been a strong advocate for Justin and his folks moving forward. It is, and I told the Commissioner of Parks Department, I was like, this is a mistake. But, you know, we philosophically feel differently. I feel like composting is a critical piece of how you want to manage natural lands, and he does not. But I am happy to answer any questions you have. But I'm actually thrilled to just be with you and to get to talk a little trash.
Cool. All right. I'm going to lead us off. This is the first question. It was written by someone else in our group, but I'm going to end up delivering it. So the first question is, what are the biggest hurdles you see to sustainable waste management in New York City? And what solutions do you have, or what inspiration will you draw from other municipalities to improve conditions here in New York City?
So the biggest challenge in New York City is always about getting community buy-in and having us actually walk the walk as well as talk the talk. But we also need infrastructure. Having more composting facilities in the city makes it much more cost effective as a program, and makes it so we also have much better educational sites. People buy in when they can see it happen. When they see it move from something that is quote unquote waste to what, you know, those of us call black gold.
Okay. Are there, and in terms of other municipalities or other cities around the world, even that you've taken, seen in your travels and taken some inspiration from and thought, wow, I wish New York was doing this? Anything come to mind?
Yes, no, definitely Portland. They have a very interesting program, and they certify products that meet their requirements for their compost facility, because every compost facility can be a little different. And so they have great infrastructure to support the back end. And Milan has done a similar thing about thinking through, compostable bags as part of the solution, so that it's easy for people to participate. And I think those are some lessons we could take away from.
Great, thank you. All right, Vanessa, you are our next questioner.
Great, good evening. My question is, what suggestions do you have for the SWABs and for other like-minded community organizations to communicate most effectively with government officials about waste management or other issues?
Well, I mean, I actually thought you all did a very effective job during the budget last year. But there are a couple of things. One is stay really crisp about what exactly the message is. Like, if you want the organics program or you want community composting, that's your message. And then have the data to take to, the Reynosos of the world or whoever will eventually take over the sanitation committee. But it should be an ongoing dialogue, and you should be meeting both with the legislative side as well as the department side to help really work together on crafting policy so that it'll pass.
Thank you. Adam?
Hey, this is a data question. So recycling has been mandatory at home and at work for a long time. We want to know where we need to do more work and how much bang for the buck, so to speak, we get from enforcement. Where can we find the enforcement data for residential and commercial activity by DSNY inspectors?
It should all be on open data, but I'll tell you that it's not much of a stick. It's $25. So it tends to not be much of a stick on the recycling side. So look, you can also look by community board at what the tonnage is in any given community board and see who is doing better and who is not. I would say that Brooklyn 6 and Manhattan 1 were almost always at the top. But there's been a lot of changes in COVID, because the metal, glass, and plastic number has been up significantly, at least until I left in October, and I assume that is still true. So I would also clarify that while recycling at work had been required since the 90s, it was a very convoluted rule. It didn't match the residential side. That didn't change until about 2016. We rewrote the rule to actually match what happens on the residential side. But that should all be on open data, all the enforcement.
Mac, Lawrence.
Yes, good evening. And thank you, Commissioner, for being here. And thank you for all of your service and your contributions already to New York City. My question is, given in today's society and today's climate, where you see the climate crisis and racial injustice at an all-time high, a lot of the times those two intersect. And so how would your office address environmental justice communities that live next to waste transfer stations and industrial areas that are negatively impacted by air pollution, leachate, particulate matter, and illegal dumping? Those are very prevalent in my area in Southeast Queens and Community Board 12. And a lot of these elements and people that are exposed to these elements do have linked health issues. So how would your administration mitigate these harms?
That is a great question. And we actually, with Councilmember Reynoso, did pass the waste equity bill, which reduced the capacity at those sites in Southeast Queens, as well as in North Brooklyn and the South Bronx. And in addition, the completion of the residential solid waste management plan means that material from Southeast Queens is going primarily up to North Shore and to the Marine Transfer Station, and then leaving by barge and train, which of course is far less polluting. In terms of illegal dumping, that is an enforcement question that needs to be continuously, unfortunately, focused on, because that's a real challenge. One of the things that's interesting about Southeast Queens and the transfer stations there is there are some long-term plans to move them to rail and make it so that you don't have long-haul trucks moving through the neighborhood. I think that is something that needs to be supported as we move forward.
Thank you.
Jen. Jen, can you be heard, or do you need me to ask you a question?
Can you hear me? That's the question.
We can. You're a little broken up, but we can hear.
Okay. Get my question ready. So, thank you, Commissioner Garcia. How do you? This is related to Mac's question. How do you plan to engage members of underserved and or overburdened communities who bear the brunt of handling the city's waste in your policy development and implementation to ensure waste equity?
So as I said, like we do have legislation that has been passed, but we have always had communities at the table talking about what their requirements were and what they needed, and they've been part of the policy thinking since the beginning. You know, they've all been at my office to meet with me and to ensure that their voices were heard, and that will continue to be true as we move forward.
All right, Amy.
Sure. Hi. Thank you again for being here tonight. One of the questions from our members is, given the challenges of the voluntary residential curbside organics brown bin program and its the fact that it's on pause right now or on hold, what are some other ways to quickly and effectively increase organics recovery in New York City at the residential level?
So that this is having more drop-off sites available for residents if we're not going to have the curbside program. At the end of the day, the curbside program is a lot more effective at engaging large amounts of the population. But if we don't have it right now, is to the extent that we can open up more drop-off sites that are available to people, that does make a difference. Though it was like, you know, one of the weird things is like one of our most successful sites was a subway commuter drop-off site, and that's like not happening now. So making sure that they're where people go, which tend to be right now parks. People are still going to parks quite often.
Rachel Oakland.
Hi, thank you again for being here. And we'll see how well this question comes through because my camera makes my computer very slow. So describe what you see as some of the logistical and political challenges with implementing Save As You Throw legislation, which, as you know, asks New Yorkers to bear more of the cost of their waste disposal while rewarding them for throwing away less.
Yes, and you know, I tried, but the real challenge is that people feel very strongly that they already pay for it. And they don't understand why they should have to ever pay for anything else if they're already paying property taxes. And even if we say, we're going to give you money back, if you use less, they do not like that. And it is hard to gain traction. I do think it would be great, and it probably wouldn't work in Queens, but to experiment on a community that would be willing to be experimented on. And one that comes to mind for me is Morningside Heights, since basically Columbia is the landlord for every building there on the residential side. So my advocacy would be like, find a willing partner to make it so that we could showcase how it actually worked and how it changed behavior.
Okay, Cara Napolitano. Cara, are you on?
am, but I didn't have a question.
Oh, I think I might have assigned you one. I'm sorry. I'll just.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm only half here tonight.
No worries. I'll just take it. And you did speak to this a little bit, but what extended producer responsibility programs do you see as particularly effective and why? What are some priority items that would make good targets for expansion of this policy?
So I actually am very excited about what's been put forward at the state level because it really deals with the majority of packaging. You know, it's paper, it's glass, it's plastic. And talking about how, you know, they often will mix materials, which makes it incredibly challenging for a MRF. So I think that is the biggest bang for the buck. It has to be something in the way that, as I understand it, I haven't seen the final draft of the legislation, that they've designed it is they know that we're not going to run separate programs for all of these different items. And so they pay for the recycling program in municipalities to do it, to make sure that the separation is occurring and the outreach is occurring, and we're getting it back on the back end. There are other pieces that I think are also ripe for looking at, such as carpet and mattresses, some of the more bulky items. But we don't want to recreate the e-waste EPR program that didn't have access. And that was the critical challenge with that piece of legislation, is there weren't enough places to even return it to. So, you know, as long as you had a mail-in program, it's like, who's mailing in a TV? Like, who's returning a TV? So, like, I think that it really drives the conversation in the right direction, but we just have to make sure when the legislation is finally formulated that, you know, the citizens of the municipality can actually meet it without an undue burden.
Mary Arnold? Can you unmute?
Yes, yeah. Thank you very much, Commissioner, for taking this question. You mentioned how important freight rail is to New York City's waste export. The Long Island Railroad has been given $24 million by the state legislature to repower 1970s locomotives used for waste export to Tier 4 standards, but has not done it. Open rail cars that emit pollution and leachate are coming into New York City from Suffolk County, and state legislation to cover them has not received New York City support or legislative support, enough legislative support. Because of how the freight rail system that existed in the past has been appropriated for passenger rail and how tracks have been dismantled, 10-acre Fresh Pond Rail Yard in Glendale, Queens is the only yard left to process rail freight. Because of this, neighborhoods are being used like the rail yard. Rail cars sit parked in neighborhoods for weeks, and trains are blocking city streets for up to a half an hour at a time. Because of upcoming landfill closures in Suffolk County, waste by rail is going to be more important, and it's going to turn this rail yard into complete gridlock. So what are your thoughts, because you've been involved in MSW export by rail, what are your thoughts about addressing some of these problems? You know, it's an interjurisdictional thicket, but city leadership is needed at the top level.
I absolutely agree with you. And if New York City can put its waste into sealed containers, Long Island can put its waste into sealed containers. And the other thing I'll tell you is I've been on the battery powered locomotive that Waste Management runs, and it can absolutely be done. We do not have to be using polluting locomotives. And I've taken a ride from Varick on that train. And I am absolutely happy to advocate at the state level for us to ensure that Long Island is doing what they need to do and, you know, protecting not only their environment, but our environment as they move. I mean, I'm happy they're moving by rail, but it needs to be covered.
Thank you.
Maybe we just have two more questions. And Justin Green is here, who you've already spoken to. You know, obviously your support. Justin, did you have sort of an addendum that you wanted to ask the commissioner?
Yeah, thank you so much, Commissioner, for your support. I mean, you've been amazing. It was great to have you at the launch of our site. And I know you've been incredibly supportive throughout. So you'd be a great mayor, and I'm happy you're running. One question, I guess, is what advice do you think we should, like, what should our next steps be to move a commissioner? As a past commissioner, what are the next steps that we can do to move Commissioner Silver opinion?
So actually, I would say watch the primary and work on your advocacy with the candidates, because you get into a 6-month tick-tock to the end of an administration, a lot of things can happen. I don't know if you ever move Mitchell Silver, but I think if you keep pushing City Hall and your local elected officials and the folks who are running for council in your district, those are very powerful voices. Like, you've got a borough president race, you've got a city council race with, I think, like 18 candidates in it. Make sure they're all talking about the site and how it needs to stay.
Great, thanks.
Okay, and our last question, a new one that came in, Kate Peterson, you had a question.
Hi. So I actually wanted to find out from you a little bit about your opinion on DSNY's management of sidewalk cleanliness. I started a neighborhood cleanup group back in June based on just overflowing trash cans and litter in the neighborhood. And there was a state comptroller audit in September where they basically came to the assessment that DSNY needs to improve its communication, coordination, record keeping. I'm just curious, in addition to, of course, advocating for increased budget for DSNY, like, what do you think needs to happen in order to make sidewalk cleanliness better? And what advocacy could Queens Solid Waste Advisory Board do in that regard?
So sidewalk cleanliness is solely the responsibility of the property owner. DSNY does not do sidewalks at all. So that is an enforcement question. And there are constraints on what times they are allowed to write a ticket. Like, you can't write a ticket at noon in front of a residential building. It's not allowed. And so I think having a priority on enforcement, if we're specifically talking about sidewalks, is a very important piece of this. I think that one of the challenges is trying to make sure that we're galvanizing all of the residents around ensuring that our properties are clean, and that our sidewalks are clean, and that we're holding our commercial strips responsible for keeping them clean. But I think it is a public relations as well as an enforcement issue on that particular topic.
Is there like a reason why, I mean, if it's not really Department of Sanitation's responsibility, and I completely understand that, of course, property owners are responsible, like, why even have the scorecard rating? Like, why even have supervisors go through and rate sidewalk cleanliness if it's not part of their purview?
So they don't rate it. It's actually rated by the Mayor's Office of Operations. It's completely separate. And it is to sort of, it helps us drive where enforcement should go. And where those resources should be focused. But they're the ones who go and drive around and score everything, but they won't tell anybody where they go. So we don't know where they go. It's all mystery.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just trying to like think about advocating how to improve the communication systems of all of these different pieces, because the data exists in places but doesn't yet come together.
Within the department, the data is fine. It's exchanged. It's not a problem.
Okay, I know there's some more questions coming in, but I'm going to have to cut us off, I think. But thank you, Commissioner Garcia, for giving us your time. And we look forward to continuing to follow you in terms of on social media and other news sites, and hear what your thoughts on other policies, which we didn't get to at all. Some people did want us to talk about some other issues, but we really felt like we needed to just keep it focused on waste. But hopefully there will be some other forums across all of the SWABs for you and other candidates to, have some deep conversations about the environment and climate change and going a little bit farther afield. So thank you for your time, and we look forward to hearing what happens next.
Yeah, thank you for all that you do. And if you want to look at other policies, you can go to kgfornyc.com. But it's always great to talk waste with folks. And I really appreciate all of your advocacy and all the support you gave me when I was commissioner to get the things done that I thought were so important. So much appreciated.
Thank you. All right. Have a great night. All right. We will let Commissioner Garcia go, and we will move on to recent items for discussion. So we have an agenda. I'll just run through the list really fast just to get people on board. So first Ariana Stenta is now our liaison to a committee, I think within the Manhattan SWAB, but it's focused very specifically on NYCHA. So she's now our lead. Thank you, Ariana, for stepping up to do that. She's our liaison. She's going to talk about that. I'm going to present a letter to support a pilot project called Check Pads. I'll share my screen. We can all look at that letter together. Justin, again, will tell us maybe a little bit more about the Save Our Compost Coalition, again, how we can help. Mary will keep a short Waste by Rail update, hopefully, maybe just focused on like any bills or legislation, again, certainly at the state level that we need to know about. Sherry Ruckel is on, and maybe we'll talk about a little bit about this Envisioning Organics project, and then a citywide food waste survey. Okay, so Ariana, take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, I've attended 2 of the NYCHA meetings, December and January, and just to keep it brief, and they have created a separate survey for the citywide waste, and they're looking for means of getting it out to NYCHA residents. It's a little bit of a tweak survey, so maybe we can circle back on that. They've had a lot of city council candidates reach out to them, and so they are looking for talking points. They've created a document to improve governmental coordination and resident involvement to increase recycling at NYCHA. I learned that recycling didn't start at NYCHA until 2015, so and it's less than 2%. So there's a lot of work to be done there. And the WE Act, the West Harlem Environmental Action Group, they commissioned a kind of a meeting where they're creating a community action plan based on 2 topics that they chose, safety and security, and then NYCHA operations, in which waste management falls under. They have not yet unveiled this plan, but they will be meeting regularly. So I can relay that when that starts happening, if anyone wants to be in on that. And then the last thing, eco hubs. So they're really starting to try to implement these eco hubs, which are on-site farms that include composting measures and an engagement of the residents at as many of the NYCHA sites as possible. So they're working with ICGT and I guess Urban X. So there's collaboration going on there. So.
Is there a way, Ariana, to invite someone from Queensbridge Houses, for example, or any other NYCHA building for that matter, to get more connected to the Queen SWAB?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can. They're really looking for collaboration because this NYCHA group kind of sits, like you said, it is mostly Manhattan based, and it's mostly northern Manhattan where there's a lot of action going on. But like Danielle, who heads this board, is really looking for as much collaboration as possible because it's going to take many hands to kind of get everything going.
Yeah. So I don't know, Joe, if you're the right person, maybe if you have some connections to NYCHA and can help me introduce us, that would be great.
Great, I absolutely do, and I will put my email in the chat for Ariana, and we'll certainly do that for you guys. That's a great idea.
Super. Thank
Great
you.
idea, Wiley.
Thanks. Okay, thank you for that. All right, I'm going to try to share my screen. And of course, it's not going to show up here. Hold on. Hi. Yikes. Close this. Let me minimize my screen. So really quickly, Check Peds and there's a group in Manhattan at Hell's Kitchen Neighbors that had proposed this project called Trash Off Sidewalk Streets, TOSS. And I presented it to you guys a few months ago, I think. And at the time, people were like not super excited about it. And not for, different reasons, I think. But both the Manhattan and the Brooklyn SWABs are in support of it. And so I tried to go back to the drawing board, tweak the letter a bit, and I'm presenting it tonight with the idea that people could vote on it, over the next few days and get back to me. So it's a very short letter. I'll try to read through it quickly. And then again, if people have any questions. So the Queens Solid Waste Advisory Board Organizing Committee is writing this letter to offer our provisional support for Trash Off Sidewalk Streets, TOSS, a project proposed by the neighborhood groups Hell's Kitchen Commons and Check Peds to eliminate the overaccumulation of trash bags from residential buildings on city sidewalks, which significantly reduces free pedestrian movement on what should be shared public space. The project takes its inspiration from models in cities such as Athens, Barcelona, etc., Canada and Pennsylvania, where municipalities have moved to an integrated model in which large covered plastic or metal bins are sited at key intersections to separate waste, paper, MGP, organics, resulting in removal of unsightly trash bags from sidewalks and reducing only minimally street parking for cars. We offer our provisional support for TOSS and suggest that the specific realities in Queens may affect the number of participants in this opt-in program. That's really important. This is not a program that would be forced on any street or any neighborhood. This is an opt-in. So if you don't want it, you don't do it. Again, this is a program that no street would be forced to participate in, thus would not be imposed, blah, blah, blah. For example, in many parts of Queens, residents live at a distance from public transportation, necessitating the use of a car. Likewise, many Queens communities are dominated by single family or 2 to 4 unit properties rather than high-rise buildings. In these communities, allocating street space for waste corrals, as suggested by TOSS, may meet with resident pushback would require strategic placement. We say there's, if similar models have been adopted successfully in other cities around the world, there's no reason why Queens, the most diverse borough in New York, should not benefit from a similar effort. And some of the benefits of the program, it would reduce truck stops and starts, on-street common collection points. This needs to be cleaned up from a visual editing perspective. Metering and auditing could be accomplished more expeditiously at waste corrals than on sidewalks, and waste corrals could provide a convenient location for pickup of items that could be repaired and or reused. So with that as the background, I'll send out this letter after our meeting, and if people could just send back, I'll try to maybe just do a quick Google yes or no survey to see if people would support this, and then this would be presented to the DOT commissioner, the acting DOT commissioner, and DSNY Commissioner Grayson to show our support for a project that both Manhattan and Brooklyn have supported. Does anyone have any questions about that at this point? No. Okay, awesome. All right. Is this related to the Clean Curbs initiative? I'm not sure. Sorry, I don't have a, I don't know the answer to that. And I see, Margaret, your question about zoning and building codes, so I will look into that too. Okay. Justin, Save Our Compost Coalition, you want to say anything more about what we can do to support you?
Hi. Yep, thanks so much for the Save Our Compost Coalition and all the waste advocates across the city have made such a massive impact. One of the primary calls city council members got when the budget cuts first hit in last March was on composting. So it really shows how passionate New Yorkers are about composting and just the support the composting movement has. Our site is one of a few sites that remain in the city for composting. It's community driven. It's right underneath the Queensboro Bridge at Vernon Boulevard and the Queensboro Bridge. And we've been composting there for a decade. And we built out a site. We cleared off 50 30-yard containers of garbage from the site, landscaped it, paved it, worked with Con Ed to make sure we weren't disrupting their power lines, and built out a cutting edge, site that works in an urban setting. We were named the Small Composter of the Year by the U.S. Composting Council this year for the site, our work there. And we're composting about half the waste that's being collected at food scrap drop-offs right now. So the waste, the food scraps we compost there are composted with wood chips and leaves from parks, and then given back to Queens Park. So Queens Horticulture is the biggest user of our compost. They love our compost, and they don't like using DSNY's compost. I can say that now that the commissioner's gone, but they prefer our compost because it's really good compost. And so Green Thumb, Queens Horticulture, lots of street tree community groups, over 200 community groups, so most of them, or a lot of them in Queens, use our compost as well. And so just sort of this really obvious to us way of recycling parks, leaf and yard waste with food scraps to make really good compost and put it back in the community. So tomorrow, Parks is actually having a input meeting about Baby Queensbridge Park. So Baby Queensbridge Park is this narrow strip of parkland between the Queensboro Bridge and Queensbridge, NYCHA development. And it's NYCHA residents there have been asking for this park to be fixed and repaired for 20 to 30 years. And so finally I think our activism got it moving, and Parks, it's like, oh, now we'll do it. But they're using that park renovation as yet another reason to kick us off. We are not in the area that's being renovated. So we're not blocking the renovation. We're not in the way of the renovation. They're saying that they have to move their operations, which is actually in that area that's being renovated, onto our area and kick us off. But if you've ever been underneath the Queensboro Bridge, you know that that entire area is dedicated to city operations and all fenced off and parking up and down from the waterfront all the way to Queens Plaza or whatever, is full of city operations. So, and Parks has 3 blocks of a fenced-in area that they could use for Parks operations. So they don't need to kick us off. And if they do kick us off, our space actually is open to the public, and we have like 1,000 volunteers come through every year. Once they do fence it off and move us, then that space won't be open to the public anymore. It'll be, they'll take that area and turn it into another governmental operations parking lot. So we've had tremendous support from council members, and Donovan Richards came and spoke at our press conference, and then Councilmember Van Bramer, Constantinides, Carlos, sort of Roosevelt Island. So many members have been really supportive of our effort to stay. The community boards are starting to rally and support too. And
how about the Queens Parks Commissioner, the Borough Commissioner?
He came out to our site right before COVID hit and thought it was great. But, when it comes down to it, people that are, the city bureaucrats line up under whoever their commissioner is, and they don't speak out against their own commissioner. So everyone sort of just gets in line, with whatever the commissioner says. And so we haven't, even though we have local, we work really closely with local parks managers, who bring us their leaves. So this is something that we started 10 years ago. We started raking leaves in Astoria Park and bringing the leaves and composting them. Now community groups do it, and Parks hauls it to us. So we have cooperation from local parks managers, from Green Thumb, from Queens Horticulture, like I said, and but no one can really speak out against their own commission.
And do you know if Ed Grayson has talked with Mitchell Silver? Do you know if they've had dialogue?
Yeah, and I think again, without the mayor stepping in, like commissioners don't like fighting with each other either, especially over an issue like this one where they see it as a community issue, not a big overarching issue. So they don't like to fight with each other either. So we have, what's really frustrating to us in Lower East Side Ecology Center and Red Oak Farms is that we have tremendous political support, but the city's not responding to it. If all of our elected officials are saying one thing, but a city bureaucrat saying something else, that doesn't make any sense. Like it's crazy that all of our city council members can say, we want this, and Parks can be like, nope, we're not going to do it. Like, I'm like, what?
We all need to call in to ask the mayor on Friday on Brian Lair and tweet on when he's on.
Wiley, if I may.
Yeah, please.
Justin, hello. Donovan is well aware of that situation. He sent me out last weekend to look at the compost and look at the place. And both of us are going to be on that meeting tomorrow. So we're of the mindset that we hear both sides, and we don't see how there's so much room there that both can't cohabitate, but he's on it. And this is just a little bit to show the guy is on it. So he talked about it with me last week, and him and I will be on the meeting tomorrow.
Amazing. And this, I'm posting the link to the meeting. Hopefully that works for everyone. But if you're a Western Queens resident, I mean, it's open to anyone, but we're really trying to get as many Western Queens, Astoria, Long Island City, Sunnyside folks there. We've been out flyering in the neighborhood just because we want as much,
This is also bringing back to NYCHA. It's basically on Queensboro Houses property. Are they in on this, or they're not really composting? I know how successful it is because we've been looking into it, but is it outside of that area and not those houses, or really not a feel for that?
Well, we offer food scrap drop-off right by the F stop there on 21st, and we worked with Jacob Reese Settlement and Green City Forest. We went actually when we launched the food scrap drop-off. We went to every unit in Queensbridge houses to flyer and knock on doors, and we worked with Green City Forest to do that. So we did extensive outreach, and we're working with community activists, Sugar Ray, who actually has done some guerrilla gardening on the NYCHA side of that. So we're working together to sort of try to create a vision for that parks area that includes like the Sacred Healing Garden that he's established, that it includes like leaving, our site there because we're a public amenity rather than a parking lot.
Good. All right. We're on tomorrow with you.
Thanks, Joe.
I think, Justin, does that feel like a good place to stop? We have the information.
Yeah, and just one other thing, I know probably all of you guys know about the Save Our Compost Coalition, but it's been one of the focal points for all the effort, and you guys, the SWABs have been a great focal point too, for the effort to keep compost going and bring back curbside composting. So just a shout out to all the people that have worked on the Save Our Compost Coalition as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so really quickly, Mary Arnold, tell us just if there's any legislation in Albany that we need to, again, be on top of. And when we last left off, for those of you who give us a very brief background, Mary is the chair I guess, is that your title? I don't know, chair of
Co-founder.
What was that?
Co-founder.
Co-founder, thank you, of Citizens United for Railroad Environmental Solutions. Did I get that right? Good.
Civics United.
Okay, civics. I always know civics. Thank you. And she's been working for a long time on this issue again of waste by rail export through a number of community boards in Queens on trains that are old, that are from the 1970s, that need to be modernized or need to be updated with covers so that smells and leachate and particulate dust, all of these bad things are not impacting neighbors along the route. When we last left off, there was some interesting legislation that had been promoted by Steve Engelbright, who was the head of the Environmental Committee in the State Assembly,
yes.
right? And we needed to get Carl Heastie, who is the head of the State Senate, to bring this legislation forward so that it could actually be voted on. And Mary, we've been all trying very hard to get this on their radar, but the Senate was not in session. And Mary, I'm going to turn it over to you in terms of what the time frame is, and again, how the SWAB and anyone writing letters or tweeting or calling can be supporting getting this legislation, getting Carl Heastie to bring this legislation to a vote in the Senate. Did I get that right?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Wiley. I just wanted to give a shout out to Joe Nocerino. Joe, I'll just say that since we last worked with you, things haven't really changed that much. The main leadership has been from Waste Management, getting that Tier 4 locomotive that Kathryn Garcia talked about, but we still have not succeeded in covering your.
I just want to show you one thing to show you how important it is. Look on my wall. Oh, can you see my wall? I can't do it. You see, I got a picture of your locomotive that you want on the wall. Do you see it there?
There you go. Well,
okay.
Actually,
so and Melinda was very much, as you know, on this for you. She brought your group and Adabo and everybody in. You know, listen, COVID got in the way. Sharon Lee certainly wasn't going to address it as she was trying to feed the public. And now that Donovan's here, again, an environmental guy, we haven't gotten there yet with him, but again, QSWAB and Hallett Seawall and everything that we're doing. But as you see, I have that locomotive that she helped us get for you, and we know there's more money and more to get. I have it tabled to get to him, Mary. You guys are cures, your counterpart, two Marys. They fool me every time. I never know which one's on the phone. But yes, I'm aware. We'll bring him to the table.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're still working on the legislation, which now has to be reintroduced. I mean, COVID, as you say, got in the way. So thanks a lot, Joe. And the QSWAB is just amazing. It's so important, like you said, you know, and Mr. Swisher said to keep this energy going, and the people that have been involved. There's just so many great ideas and so much energy. So thank you.
Okay, great. So Mary, you'll just keep us posted again when our services are needed to, again, like rally the troops around this legislation. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, great. All right, quickly, the Envisioning Organics project. Sherry, I was actually hoping, since I've been talking a lot, if you would feel comfortable sharing a little bit about the Envisioning Organics project that the 4 SWABs now are jointly kind of working on, and tell us a little bit about that, or Dior for that matter.
Wiley, before you do that, I just want to show you. There's the train on the wall. You know those locomotives. We're on it. Sorry.
No, thank you. Sherry, are you able to unmute? If not, okay, I'm going to say no. Dior, are you still on the call?
I'm here, but I wasn't prepared to speak.
I know. All right, that's cool. That was not nice of me to put you guys on the spot. I will just say that the 4 SWABs, Dior St. Hilaire, chair of the Bronx SWAB, Sherry Ruckel from the Brooklyn SWAB, Matt Civello, and myself have been meeting like once or twice a week now in an effort to raise funds for what we hope to be a year-long effort called the Envisioning Organics Project. We are still very much in the planning stage. We have Gail Brewer, the Manhattan Borough President, is aware of it. I don't think Donovan Richards is yet. And so maybe Joe, again, we could talk with him a little bit more about that and see if there might be a little bit of money in a budget. And I know there's not much to support our kind of getting this off the ground. So we see it as a way of really reinvigorating the conversation about getting us to zero waste and really making organics mandatory, and the education and the design and the innovative thinking that needs to happen to make that successful. Because we know that the voluntary brown bin program being on pause, it's going to be that much harder to restart it in a year from now. It's just not going to be on people's radar, and it wasn't working anyway. So we don't want to, keep reinventing the same bad wheel. We need to think outside the box or outside the bin. So that's just a little bit about what that is. Last but not least, again, and this was presented to me by the Manhattan SWAB, and I don't know why it doesn't come up. Try to share my screen here for a second. Here we go. So this is the New York City Food Scrap Survey that the Manhattan Solid Waste put together. And I will just convey that I will share. We want it's started by the Manhattan SWAB, but they are asking me to share with all of you that they'd like to have broad participation in this, and I think it's worthwhile. I don't think page 1 of 19. I'll tell you what, guys, I'm going to take this survey first before I force everyone else to do it. If it's 19 pages, I want to make sure that it's a good use of people's time, and that they've done a survey that people will actually complete. 19 pages seems like a lot. So I will do my own, I will answer it and before I share it with all of you. All right, so that is our recent items for discussion. We are at 7:50. We are doing really well. State of Waste in Queens report. Kara Napolitano, our new Fearless project manager, following Rachel Nato as our first project manager. Kara, do you want to just get everyone up to speed on that report? Are you with us? Did we lose you? Can you unmute, Kara? Did we lose Kara? Okay, I guess we lost Kara. That's sad. And Rachel, do you want to say anything, or do you want me to take this one?
I can chime in, but
Okay.
feel free to
Sure.
shout out if I get any of the details wrong.
No worries.
So just really quickly, the last few bi-weekly weeks, Wiley, myself, and Kara have been meeting to just discuss where the report is at currently. I'm not sure if has the revised timeline been shared out, Wiley?
No, but I think we're aiming for like April approximately.
Yeah. So just, quickly, January, February, we're gathering, any missing info in the report, analyzing community board needs, finalizing the flow of the document. I know Wiley have been reaching out to different sections to just check in and gather any last information. Like February, March, we're hoping to finish cleaning up the document, finalize layout and graphics, and March, April, finalize everything and get it out. Those are my major updates.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So one of the things that I think we had talked about in the last call is photographs. Is that for graphic elements, if people could look at your sections and where you see opportunities for photographs, and then Rachel or Kara will send out a link to a folder on Google Docs where people can upload those photographs and just indicate if it's a photograph you took, so that we have the rights to it. Obviously, if it's a person, we need their permission. If it's a photograph that you've grabbed from the interwebs, we need to know that we have the rights to use it. So so that would be really helpful, especially anyone who did a sidebar story about a person. Rocky the Pug is on this call or this Zoom, and we love the stuff that you guys are doing to start compost drop-off sites in Astoria. So like if there's a profile of you, and if you want to hide, keep anonymous and keep with your dog profile, that's totally fine. A picture of your dog would be lovely in this report. But yeah, so anyway, so if people have ideas for photographs, again, of compost bins, of trash on the street, unfortunately, of, you know, whatever your topic area is, please we'll be sending out a link for people to upload those photos. Yeah, and thank you to everyone. I know this is like a very iterative process, and I know people have worked super hard on this, going out and gathering data, starting from scratch. It's not easy. We will be, you know, again, so I've given some people 2 weeks to kind of redo their sections, and so thank you for the people who are going back to keep rewriting their sections. I hope in 2 weeks I'll have versions that then I can start to feel more comfortable, you know, chopping up and cleaning up, just to make the voice of the whole thing kind of flow together. I do want to say for the waste survey, I know I was responsible for going out to one of the communities to gather surveys, and I only was able to get 4 surveys. I'm not real comfortable with that, so I am going to try to go back out to that neighborhood where there was the dumping site. It's behind a grocery store in Queens Village. I am going to try to go back out. I would really like to get 10 responses before I would feel comfortable saying much about that. So it's more commensurate with the other 2 sites. So I just want to put that out there. All right, so we are almost at time. This is awesome. So Kate Enns took notes for us tonight. We usually try to do rotating note takers so that no one person is tasked with that each time. If possible, I'll say Margaret Flanagan, I know you're new to us, but if you think you're going to be on the call next time, please talk to me, reach out to me, and maybe we can assign you to be our next note taker. Janet, you've been at a lot of meetings, or Justin, I know you're new to us too, but we just are kind of going a little bit in informal alphabetical order based on last name at this point. I think that's it. Does anyone have any last questions, thoughts? Oh, our next speaker. Our next speaker, hopefully, is connected to our group, Mac Lawrence and Andrea Scarborough. They have some really exciting news, and I kind of left it to the end, and I really should have done it sooner. I'm going to share my screen one more time, because this is like, honestly, this is to me one of the most exciting things that's come out of this. Andrea and Mac are now, and Andrea's name is actually on this grant, I believe, are part of a $25,000 grant through Mount Sinai to do a community-led investigation of air quality and environmental injustice in proximity to 2 waste transfer stations in Jamaica, Queens. This is a collaboration that they made happen through their networking and their passion about this topic in CB12. I've been on 1 or 2 calls. I wish I could be on more. They, I think, are going to possibly be our speakers for our next meeting to talk about this really, really important research that they're doing, that they have helped win $25,000 to look at this issue of diesel exhaust waste blow-off in partnership with a York University out there, a SUNY school, in partnership with a local high school. So kids are involved, there's doctors involved, these QSWAB members. So this is like, I couldn't be more like amazed and excited about this work. So that's totally them. Mac, do you want to say anything before we stop about this?
Yeah, we'll definitely be able to talk more of it. You know, it's definitely something that was near and dear to me and Andrea's hearts, but also our health as well. You know, it's a cool project, but it's very impactful. We were able to partner with a professor, air quality professor at York College. So that's in the area. She's been doing a lot of work with air quality studies, and just very important to kind of find out. It really all lined up with even a lot of what has been highlighted with COVID, with a lot of Black and brown folks have been, early on were being infected with COVID at alarming rates. And a lot of them is because they had pre-existing conditions. And so this is attached to those pre-existing conditions with people living in highly air polluted areas. We even see in London, there was a tragic story of a 9-year-old Black girl who, they actually confirmed in the UK that she died because she had respiratory issues related to air pollution. Mm. So we know that, the project, it really has, life, like it has impact on people's lives and their livelihoods. So we're just honored to be a part of it. Definitely going forward, we know that QSWAB will be able to play like, a huge factor and a huge character and, just being able to us getting more attention to the issue. And, now with Queensborough President Donovan Richards really looking at us as partners, we'll be able to really, kind of put these concerns to his office and, be able to work with him to mitigate some of these health issues that, people in Queens that are going through and people in Community Board 12 is going through, but also in the other parts of the city, as we heard.
Yeah, and I neglected to mention Mary Arnold, who is also been attending these meetings and involved in this work. So I apologize to Mary because she's been really instrumental too. And you can see this is a year-long project, and they're going to be looking for, I know the lead investigators are going to be looking for some other funds to again pay community members, to pay these high school kids, to be doing very participatory research. So it's really exciting, and we look forward to having you guys tell us more about it at our February meeting. And then March will be Amanda Kaminsky, who is a woman-led sustainability company working in the construction and demolition area and looking to do more sustainable construction. So a lot of our focus over this next year is going to be on environmental justice, on waste equity, and really highlighting the work of people of color and women in this waste space. So we're super excited about that. So it is exactly 8. That never happens. And so I'm going to take that as a good sign that it's time to stop. And just appreciate everyone always making the time for this call every month. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Good to see you all again.
Take care.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.